Now maybe next we can go to Mr. Garcia to hear an industry perspective on these issues.
Thank you, Dave. Maybe you will hear a voice, a slightly different voice than the two others. We are an energy-intensive industry here, and since we are energy guzzlers, we do care about energy efficiency in this world, and particularly in Europe, since the price of energy, the cost of energy, is actually the highest in the world. If we exclude Japan. But certainly the spread between the European cost of energy and the American cost of energy is increasing day in, day out. So that's really what matters to us. Not much the cost of CO2, although I will come back to that in a minute. That really is an important topic of the day. But more importantly is the price of energy that we, as an industry, and not only the chemical industry, I'm speaking on behalf here, but the overall energy-intensive industry in Europe. That's a question of competitiveness at the end of the day. One should maybe ask the question is, why is the price of CO2 so low unexpectedly, or maybe expectedly, because we do believe that this market is actually functioning well, and functioning in a way that it delivers what it has been designed for delivering. It is, ETS is a cap and trade. The cap is fixed, and we're going to deliver as an industry, but also as an organization broad, beyond the chemical industry. We will deliver the cap of 20%. By 2020, we will actually make more than that by the time frame of 2020. But there is also a trade element in the ETS, and the trade works as a market, and the CO2 market nowadays is long due to certainly a supply side, but also a demand side. By the way, we are in a recession, and maybe our policymakers maybe have skipped that element that we have been in a recession for almost 2 years now, and that shows up. So the demand side is low in Europe for primary oil industries, and particularly those driven by ETS. So one may question as well, what would be the effect of the backloading of the semi-permanent set-aside, or even a permanent set-aside in the near future? We wouldn't expect much out of it on the price side. However, the political side would be much detrimental to what we believe is a good mechanism that, as Commissioner Hedegaard said, Europe has been leading the pack with building this up years ago. ETS is a functioning mechanism. Fixing it, as I hear that word here and there, why fix a mechanism that is actually working well? And I'm not exaggerating here, but it is a market-driven mechanism, so it is a question of supply and demand again. We shouldn't also too much jump onto the panic, because indeed we are in a recession, and fixing an element during a recession year might lead us to actually more worse than good in the very near future. If we think of backloading, we would think of loading this back again into the marketplace, maybe in 4 or 5 years from now, before 2020. So what would be the effect by then? And what would be the effect on a longer-term price signal, which we believe is the way to go as well for Europe, but not only for Europe, for the international market. Because we are operating on a global market here, so we need to have, and that's the plea to our policymakers here in Europe, is really to push those international negotiations forth. We have been part of the COPs over the past 10 and so years. We participated to those events not only passively, I would say, as a constant listeners, but quite recently doing events and also partnering with the International Energy Agency and showing up as a solution providers for the society at large in Europe. So we would urge the policymakers, if the aim is actually to think on the longer term, as I've heard Commissioner Hedegaard talking about the longer term view of the European policy making, which we embrace as a concept. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's think of longer term, but by enabling, creating the framework in Europe for more innovation again, new products. The chemical industry is one of them, able to create products that actually gets into the building market, into the automotive market for even an increased energy efficiency and a better Europe at the end of the day as far as energy intake is concerned. So that's an urgent call we have on you policymakers, but you can count on us for helping this out indeed in the current hard years we are in, but certainly not in our point of view through a very short-term backloading or even a longer-term set-aside, which we think would be detrimental. Again, that's a functioning mechanism that we ought to be keeping and developing worldwide, also with the US, with China. Some states in the US, like California, have embraced that idea. South Korea is doing this. So, and we as ICCA members, International Chemical Council Associations, we do facilitate that at our level on the international scene. So you can really count on us in developing that. But please refrain from backloading in 2013 for that many allowances, which in any case will flood the market in 4 years from now when we might not need them. Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, let's go to Ms. Ostranuska for a member state perspective.
You don't have to clap when I finish, so no offense taken. Well, Poland has been granted the presidency of COP19, and we play now a dual role as an EU member state and as the upcoming COP presidency. Both of these perspectives are equally important for us, even though the last time we have had a COP presidency was only 5 years ago, while the EU membership requires constant effort in searching for global solutions, starting, of course, at the EU level, and it's sometimes proving to be difficult. There is much to be done before COP19 in Warsaw to achieve a result that could be announced as a success. And of course, I don't speak here about the success for Poland or for Warsaw, but for the global climate change negotiations on the UNFCCC forum. So we see the 3 years time span as a coherent process leading to the finalization in 2015 of a single global legally binding treaty applicable to all. Translating this plan into particular years means that what we need to have in Warsaw, we feel, is a robust framework for the agreement, which we can use to build upon in 2014 and then translate it into a legal text at COP21 in 2015. 3 years is not long, and we cannot postpone taking decisions to the next COPs. They are all necessary. All of the coming up, all of the incoming COPs are necessary for the final success, and we are very much aware of the responsibility that we have taken. So I can declare that we will do our best to facilitate that achievement, both on the logistics, that proves to be key when it comes to the organization of COP, and of course on the substantive side as well. As the COP presidency, Poland will have the privilege to listen and be heard by all the parties. This means that we will be able to compare the various viewpoints and ideas, including the EU position on the shape of the new global climate agreement, and it's a perspective that cannot be underestimated when it comes to the knowledge of the process. My climate colleagues negotiating it internationally tell me. So we want to contribute in a very tangible way to a global agreement by facilitating, stimulating the dialogue between the parties, and we also, having had the presidency, EU presidency, not that long ago, understand that it means that we will have to leave aside our national interests. We already know what are the national, the main positions, national positions of the countries, what are the ideas, what are the mechanisms which parties want to see as part of the agreement, and one of those mechanisms are carbon markets, which have been developing in many parts of the world, and that can provide a significant stimulus for the GHG reductions. Nevertheless, other means to mitigate climate change have also been taken into consideration, and we are ready to do that. So we expect to receive many inputs to this discussion throughout 2013, and of course we would want to be the EU to be an active participant in the discussion with open mind and innovative ideas. I have noted the European Parliament's readiness to get involved, and I remember when we were preparing for Durban, it was the European Parliament that strongly insisted for going for the second commitment period, when in the Council the discussions were failing on details of how we are going to get there. So in my personal opinion, this is more than welcome, and we are very ready to have an inclusive discussion. On the other points that were made, I don't want to comment because my role was very clearly defined in this discussion, and you know what is the official position of my country when it comes to the interventions in the market-based system. But as I'm not the politician, I will cite Minister Korolec, who today, in this difficult day when the prices have gone significantly down again and again, has tweeted a following comment. CO2 prices falling on bad news on economic recovery. Don't fix the ETS, fix the economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, we'll get environmental campaigner perspective from Tom Brooks.
Thank you. I'm not sure everyone in the room would quite suggest I'm an environmental campaigner, but I will do my best to represent that view. As our Polish colleague noted, it's been busy days for the ETS. We've had a carbon auction cancelled in Germany due to lack of interest. We've had E.ON's CEO suggesting that the ETS is a joke that the whole world laughs about. UBS have said that carbon will be worthless without ETS reform. These are tough times, but it's interesting actually that the split that indeed this room seems to represent on these issues shows how far the debate has become removed from the reasons that actually all of this was necessary in the first place. If you read the World Bank's 4°C report from November of last year, you get a very clear picture of the fact that the climate crisis is not tomorrow's problem. It is a very clear and present danger. Coal, the dirtiest of fossil fuels, with the possible exception of Canadian tar sands, will go below about $100 a year. Sorry, $100 a tonne this year. That will result in a hopefully, or has resulted in a hopefully brief growth of coal in Europe. The ETS and the carbon price were designed to change those dynamics, incentivise low carbon transition, and that objective is clearly failing. The argument of the energy intensive industries, as William has alluded to, is basically, this is their argument against the reform of the ETS, is that the carbon price reflects the economic crisis. I think it's also important to say that actually the current carbon price is mainly a result of the fact that the ETS itself does not reflect the crisis. It was not set up on the basis that the crisis would exist. When the system was designed, the cap would be effective on the basis that new technologies and efficiency would be implemented to reduce emissions as production continued to grow. The 20% target will indeed be achieved without, in fact, any real policy impact from the ETS at all. It'll be achieved by reduction in economic output, primarily. In ETS terms, a false reduction. In addition, the vastly overstated number of sectors that are susceptible to carbon leakage has ensured that there is a massive oversupply of credits, negating any supply-side effects on the price. The ETS was built and its parameters were set on an assumption of growth. That did not happen. It may not happen in the near future. However, the decarbonisation goal remains an absolutely vital objective. Therefore, the system needs to be reset. The competitiveness issue has been raised, and it's a very important one. What impact would a higher carbon price have on European industry? Well, first, we need to establish which industries we're actually talking about. competitiveness is global competitiveness, and as has been noted, 25% of US economic activity is now subject to cap and trade between California and New England. You've got provinces in China, you've got Australia, parts of Canada, soon Korea, all operating carbon markets. The competitive landscape has without doubt changed. Also, that list was originally drawn up on the basis of a €30 carbon price, unlikely at any time soon. So we also need to be clear what weaknesses the current system has resulted in. According to the CE Delft reports, which I'm sure most people in this room are familiar with, there was about a 14 billion windfall profit for oil, chemicals and steel over these past few years. They reckon a further 1.3 billion euros for the airlines after they passed on the costs of carbon to consumers that they won't have to pay for at least another year. And all that cost has been heaped onto consumers by industries that are essentially completely insulated from the effects of a carbon price by the free allowances that were given away at the time. If, as William said, a carbon market is the answer to the creation of a carbon price, then let's have a carbon market which is based on reality. There's a few key things that need to happen. As Matthias noted, we need to reopen the carbon leakage list, narrow it down to the very few industry sectors that should actually be on it, cancel the free allowances which are polluting the system, increase the emissions reduction target to make it meaningful, and support the backloading proposal as a small, absolutely insufficient, but very important step towards a structural reform of the system, allowing the ETS to take its rightful place in the increasingly global carbon market. Those sectors that are exposed, however, do need help. They need transition plans that are supported by government, supported by regulations, and that can secure Europe's manufacturing sectors and the high-value jobs that it provides. A carbon price alone won't do the job in the time available. We need other measures on innovation, renewables, efficiency, that bolster the effect of the carbon pricing. Let's be clear. Europe's future, if it is to be prosperous, will be low carbon, resource efficient, and highly innovative. Fossil fuels are reaching close to a 10-to-1 ratio of energy return on energy invested, down from about a 40-to-1 ratio only 2 decades ago. We are on the edge of the cost cliff in terms of fossil fuel energy. They have become a limitation to growth, not a driver. So what is the answer to our economic woes? Well, to quote Bill Clinton's former spokes and indeed Bloomberg more recently, it's the transition, stupid. The low carbon, resource efficient transition. And along with sector-specific regulations, transition plans for transport, industry, power, buildings, and ecosystem support, the ETS is a vital part of that picture. It will help Europe with our own challenges, provide a hook for global integration of markets, and provide impetus to the international process, to turn to that for a moment. That process is vital in managing the global commons of our atmosphere and our natural resources. The Durban platform, as Connie has alluded to, sets the stage for very significant progress in the coming year towards a global agreement in 2015. The ETS is fundamental to Europe's commitment to tackling global climate change. Let's not let it become a joke. The two are intrinsically linked. Restructuring the ETS is vital to the international process, and that process is vital to our collective future. This is not time for Europe to step back from facing its challenges. The threat and the opportunity have never been greater, and when inaction is guaranteed to result in disaster, I think we can bet that those who lead will win. Thank you.
Thank you very much.